All right, we're here. Welcome to Forward Future Live. It is September 11th, 2025, Thursday. Welcomed by my co-host once again, Nick Wentz. What's up, Nick?
Hello.
And we are officially launching the Forward Future Live show right here at Boxworks. Super excited. We are all about builders. It is a live show that celebrates builders, researchers, entrepreneurs, tinkerers, developers, solopreneurs. Everyone, if you're building something, if you're following your dream and you're building something awesome for the world, we love you. We love builders. So welcome to the show. Today, we are again at Boxworks. Thank you to Box for sponsoring us, coming here, for hosting us. We have some incredible guests coming up. First, we're going to talk to Srinivas Narayanas, CTO of B2B applications at OpenAI. We're going to talk all about GPT-5, what that means for the future of software. And we're also, after that, having Matan Grinberg, CEO of Factory AI. He actually put together a hackathon comparing human developers versus human developers with AI. And the results may or may not be shocking. We will see. We'll talk to him about that. And then finally, the man himself, Aaron Levy, CEO of Box. We're going to talk about what he just launched, everything that he's thinking about the future of work, the future of enterprise. So it's going to be a fun show. I've done enough talking. Nick, help me out first. Let's get into some stories.
Yeah, I mean, quite a lineup, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are three great guests. Very excited to be here at Boxworks. The lights are bright. The mics are hot. Let's get into it. It's the first time.
Yeah, it's exciting.
First live show.
And by the way, we're going to have a bunch of people streaming in a little bit. So you're going to see all of them back there. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to get loud.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so first things first, we're going to cover some stories that have broken in the last couple of days here. Let's start with Replit. We have a Series C to announce here. This was announced yesterday on Twitter, I believe. So we are excited to share that we have closed our $250 million Series C at a $3 billion valuation.
There you go.
Congrats to the Replit team. We're big fans of Replit over here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just had the honor of interviewing the CEO,
Yep.
Amjad. Video coming soon, by the way. Lots of interesting things from that conversation.
Yeah.
Something that stood out to me is you have these frontier labs, whether it's OpenAI or Anthropic, developing really good state-of-the-art coding tools. And so these coding agent tools like Replit need to lean into their competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And so what was his response to the platform risk that inherently exists for him and other tools like Replit?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that quite a bit today, platform risk. I mean, we have someone from OpenAI here today with us, and yeah, I mean, if you're building your company on top of another model provider's model, there's certainly something to think about. So he had some good thoughts about it. It's certainly scaffolding is all you need, everything around kind of the raw material of the output of the model, which is what Alex Karp just said this week, right?
We'll talk about him.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. And then you build everything on top of that, and then also they have the advantage of building on top of multiple models, taking the best models, taking the best aspects of each model, and putting it all together in a really seamless workflow. They did announce some cool stuff, though. Did you see their agents run for 200 minutes?
200 plus, yeah.
Autonomously. So you're sending out an agent to go code for you, and then it comes back 200, and he actually said 200 was kind of like the minimum.
Right.
He said they had successful runs at over 200 minutes. So very, very impressive.
Yeah.
But then I think, okay, it's good that they can go out and work autonomously for long periods of time, but what we also need to do is compress what they can get done in a shorter period of time.
Right.
Like, I think the ultimate outcome is you give it a task and it comes back seconds later, fully completed.
Right.
But it is good that they can go out and actually complete tasks over long horizons.
200 plus minutes really surprised me. And the benefit of that is just the sheer amount of work that the agent can get done. And also there's a double-edged sword here where more things can go wrong in that time too, right?
Yeah, and that's the point, I think. They were testing it successfully completing tasks at 200 minutes. And you're right, so much can go wrong. And a lot of that is there's obviously some of it in the model itself that's helping it run on these long horizon tasks, but a lot of it is, like we said, scaffolding.
Right.
It's all the things that you build, the memory, the guardrails, everything around the actual model itself that allow it to perform over these long horizon tasks.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's get on to the next story here. So we have ByteDance unveiling new AI image model to rival Google DeepMind's Nano Banana.
Yeah. It's not as fun to say.
It's not as fun to say.
ByteDance Sea Dream 4, not as fun to say. So that's already a ding from me.
The thing that stands out to me here is just how, like, the state of competition, right?
Yeah.
Like, just 2 weeks ago, we were blown away by this model. We've done some internal testing on this model. I don't think you've tested it yet, right?
No, but our crack research team
research team, yeah.
Yeah.
And they've said good things. I don't know if it's better, the same, but anyway, it's surely competitive.
I think we just actually got word right before this. It is beating Nano Banana on the LM leaderboards. Jonah, is that right? I think so. Yes. We'll double check that. Yeah. So it is very good. It's a ByteDance model. It is not open source, not open weights. If I believe I'm right on that. Yep. But yeah, we have another model, and I think this is a trend. We see one company come out with something that seems mind blowing, and then weeks later, we have either an open source version of it that is comparable, or a closed source version.
Yeah.
Of course, I love open source, so I'm really hoping we get an open source version of this very soon.
Right. We got some nice images here. I'm a little concerned about the folks' safety in this cabin. It looks open air in space, so maybe some issues there, but it's only going to get better from there.
I think Nano Banana was especially impressive on image editing and consistency.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you put an image in there and you say, change this one little aspect of it, and it will do that very successfully. And again, I haven't tested Sea Dream, excuse me. We'll see. We'll see if it's that good.
All right.
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going. All right, so big news from the Qwen team, introducing Qwen 3 Max Preview Instruct, our biggest model yet with over 1 trillion parameters, now available via Qwen Chat, Alibaba Cloud API. Benchmarks show it beats our previous best. This is one of my favorite model names. I think you know that. Qwen 3 235B A22B 2507.
Nice.
That's a good
Perfect.
one.
Nailed
internal tests and early user feedback confirm stronger performance, broader knowledge, better at conversations, agentic tasks, and instruction following. Pretty interesting. The main note here for me is, well, first of all, we have a mixture of experts here, which is always great to see.
Yeah, trillion parameters. Yeah.
But is this China going closed source, closed weights? Is that the tipping point? Are we going to see more of that out of China?
Yeah, I think that's really the question. Like, these Chinese models have been primarily open source and fantastic, and I love it. And then we see, like Meta in the US has an open source model. And then now it seems like they're changing direction where their frontier model is going to be closed source, and then maybe everything under that's going to be open source. We saw a very similar approach from OpenAI. They just released a really great open source model, but of course the frontier is closed. Now from Alibaba, Qwen, maybe that's their approach. They're going to have their frontier model be closed source, the best of the best, and then everything under that is going to be open source. Yep. I surely hope that's not the case. I love getting the best of the best out there in open source, open weights. I should clarify the difference there. But we have multiple Chinese models in the top 10 on LM Arena, including Qwen 3 Max Preview. I have not tested it myself. It's been a busy few weeks. I need to get testing all of these cool things.
Indeed. Slacking over here. All right, so here is the leaderboard for tech specifically, and you can see Qwen 3 is taking up the 6th position, just below GPT-5 chat. All right, great. What do you think? One more story? Or
let's do one more.
One more?
Let's do one more.
Yeah, okay. All right, so exclusive. ASML becomes Mistral's AI's top shareholder after leading latest funding round. Now, by the way, quick shout out to Acquired, the podcast Acquired. They have an incredible episode on ASML, go into an incredible amount of detail, would highly recommend it. But this company, they build giant and insanely precise machines that essentially print tiny circuits onto silicone.
And they're really like the only ones.
They're like the only company in the world that does this.
Yeah.
And so, without them, we don't have high-tech chips.
Right.
In our phones, in our computers,
Yeah.
in our data centers, they don't exist without this company. So ASML is putting 1.3 billion into the Mistral, ending up with about 11% stake, making it a top shareholder.
Why did they choose Mistral? So Mistral, open source, open weights, if I believe, if I'm correct about that, I believe I am. European tech company.
Yep.
Out of France. Mistral.
Mistral.
Yeah, Mistral. And why did they choose Mistral? ASML is a European company.
They
right?
are.
I forget exactly where they're from, but I'm pretty sure they're a European company. But they
Netherlands,
took,
yep.
Netherlands. So they took a massive percentage of Mistral. They must be doing something. They must have some insight. Mistral has some phenomenal models, but they're certainly not frontier level models.
Yeah. I think it kind of comes down to European sovereignty. Like if you can own the tooling, the models, and then you have all of these U.S. and foreign tech companies conforming to sovereign rules, then suddenly you own the whole AI stack.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I mean, we'll see what they do with this. Obviously, they have insider information now. So
and I think to your point, like the European market is very regulated with AI, and I don't know. Hopefully, this bumps them in the right direction. I think it's time to bring on our guest, though.
I think we should.
All right. So, our first guest, Srinivas Narayanan, CTO of B2B applications at OpenAI. Srinivas, come on, join us.
Welcome to the show.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Pull that mic right up.
You got your water over there, by the way.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Doing well. Good to see you. You just got off
here.
stage.
Yeah.
We're at Boxworks. You gave a talk there.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your new role, CTO of B2B applications at OpenAI. No big deal.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us, what does CTO of B2B applications actually mean? What do you oversee? What is your mission? What are the key metrics that you're looking at for the success of you and your role?
Yeah, in a nutshell, I really going to focus on building the technology and the engineering and the systems to make AI more beneficial for businesses. This is like startups, SMBs, enterprises, governments, and the big motivation for me to just go focus on this was I was leading engineering across all different products, but we felt like the business part is more nascent, and we're making incredible progress in models and intelligence. We're winning math Olympiads, we're winning coding competitions, but when you look at the impact it is having in businesses and how businesses are getting transformed, it still feels very early.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so there's this large chasm between what models are good at in benchmarks versus how it's playing out in the real world. And so a big reason I came to OpenAI is to actually have broad impact on lots of different industries. So I'm just so naturally curious to go and figure out, okay, like why is it not working as well in the real world? Like, and how do we go solve that?
Yeah. There was a study recently, MIT did, 95% of pilots are failing in the enterprise, right? I'm sure you saw that. Like, what do you make of that? What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't read that in detail, but I'm a little bit skeptical on like just saying like one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
And the truth is always probably somewhere in the middle. I do think there are real challenges today, and when you try to deploy AI in the real world, right? Like the real world is messy, right? And it's not as clean, and you can't represent what you are trying to do in like very, very simple ways. And so I think there is a lot of work to be done to make it work. And what is the context that you care about? How do you represent what is good and what is not good? And so, yeah, definitely there's a lot of work to do. But at the same time, we're also seeing tremendous growth in enterprises and businesses who are using AI already, right?
Yeah.
Coding is a great example. I mean, like, look at where the world was maybe even a year ago compared to where we are today. It's crazy. Like, as a software engineer, I mean, I've been a software engineer for like a long time, and this world has not changed this much so long, and like it's just completely different in the last year, right? And it is both exciting and it's also super interesting to see. I think that is going to play out in lots of other places. And so I think it's also, just going back to your question, I think it's a little bit like, I think painting an extreme to say that nothing is working, right? Like I think it is working in many cases, and I think we have this amazing opportunity to figure out how to make it work in all these other places too.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of caveats to that 95%. And I spoke to Aaron Levy a few months ago. I interviewed him, and he said there's like this maybe 12 to 8 month period of capability of like the core AI model or the architecture around the model, and then what is actually getting deployed in enterprise. And are you seeing the same thing? And how are you thinking about kind of closing that gap between what is possible today with the model and then what is actually deployable in enterprise settings?
Yeah, I think, like I said, the businesses do care about lots of things, and there is a gap between an academic benchmark or a coding competition win or a math Olympiad win to what does it mean for my business, right? Like, what are the tasks that I care about? What are the workflows that I care about? And understanding and translating the gap is going to take time and requires domain knowledge. It requires a mindset change on how you're going to integrate technology. You care about security, privacy, all the things that businesses really, really care about. I think we're working through all of that. And that's why I think you're going to see some gap. And our goal is to actually bring that down even more. And I think at the same time, I'm also seeing a lot of people embrace this new technology to, you can think about AI as not just as it's going to improve my productivity of my workforce or make it more efficient, but it is also going to help you rethink what your business can do. What are the new products that you can build? How do you accelerate? How do you create something new for your customers, right? And I think you're going to see that as well. And you're seeing innovation in that quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's like history repeating itself. Anytime a new technology comes, we're seeing, okay, how do we fit it into the existing use cases? Right. Magazines going on the internet, for example. But yeah, I think there's going to be completely new use cases. I'm super excited about that. Speaking of, I want to talk a little bit about agents. We've been talking, I've been speaking with a lot of leaders in AI, and they're thinking about the changing software landscape and how potentially applications are going to collapse down into agents. Replit CEO just said agents all the way down. Do you believe that? Do you see that? And how is that going to get thought of in the enterprise context?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at AI in the last few years, like, we've gotten really good at answering questions, right? So, the previous era of consuming information was search terms and clicking links and all that, and that has changed very dramatically. Now you ask questions, you're getting answers, and the answers are concise, and you can follow up, and you can really try to get to the root of what you're curious about.
Yeah.
The shift with agents is that you're now not just asking questions, you're actually stating your goals. And AI is going to do all the work to actually satisfy your goals and do actions on your behalf, not just answer questions, right? And that is fundamentally driven by a few different things. It's driven by progress in the reasoning models, which can think for long periods of time, and it can take actions on your behalf. And it's driven by progress in multimodality, where you can understand images, text, audio, video, etc. It's driven by progress in some of the foundational engineering work we have done, where models can have traceability and accountability on how they are thinking, what actions they are taking, and all of that, right? So definitely there's a huge paradigm shift driven by advances in reasoning models. And so now what that means is that we're moving from an era of asking questions to stating goals. And coding is the great example, right? Like, so if you look at it, the first integrations of AI into coding was very interactive, right? You're coding, you have an IDE, you're going to complete your code and ask it to write a function. You're seeing the shift towards more agentic coding, right? So Codex is a great example. You're starting with, hey, I want to build this feature. And it goes off, it thinks for a long period of time, runs in a cloud, it understands your code base, it figures out what to do, maybe thinks for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, an hour, comes back with the PR, right? And that's a very, very different way of working and writing code.
Yeah.
And it's not just now you can generate one PR, you can have 10 agents do 10 different things. And some level, what you're limited by is your own imagination, which is a very different place to be, right? It's not just AI aiding you, it's like amplifying your imagination by 100-fold or 1,000-fold,
right.
which is, I think it's like that is one of the exciting potentials of these agentic systems.
I really like how you phrased that, moving from asking questions to stating goals. That's pretty powerful. So you mentioned the coding use case. That's one where we've seen a lot of progress. Where else are we seeing progress? Like, what other use cases are you excited about?
Yeah, I think coding is like, it's the tip of the spear.
Yeah.
And it's because AI, we're all software engineers, computer scientists, and we see the future maybe a little bit earlier, and therefore when our own work, we see the opportunity for transformation in our work, we are early and eager to embrace that. And I think you're going to see that happen in other domains, right? Like, so medicine is one, finance, healthcare, pretty much every industry where there is knowledge work. I think you're going to have AI be able to help you do your knowledge work much, much better and in more agentic ways, right? And so it's not any one domain, it's just so cross-cutting.
You know, a couple weeks ago, Balaji put out a blog post that was super interesting and kind of thinking about the future of AI and how humans interact. And I want to ask you about human in the loop. And so his thought was that for the foreseeable future, AI is going to be middle to middle. And to really achieve end-to-end workflows with AI, there's still going to need to be humans on the edges doing reviewing and verification. Do you agree with that? Do you see those edges becoming thinner over time?
I think the edges will become thinner. I mean, we still have hallucinations, right? It's not perfect in everything, and it can create mistakes, etc. So I think a lot of times the answer is going to depend on what is the error bar that you have for the task you're trying to do, and can you accommodate that? And of course the models are getting better and better, right? And so I think you're seeing the models get rise and tide. You will be able to spend more reasoning tokens. You'll be able to analyze more. You'll be able to auto grade your work. So I think definitely you're seeing the tide lift up on reducing hallucinations and increasing accuracy. But at the same time, I think there will always be domains, at least for the foreseeable future, where you care about the perfection, and you're going to have a human in the loops.
And you mentioned hallucinations. OpenAI published an incredible paper this past week talking about really the root cause of hallucinations being the reinforcement learning and kind of just the nature of generating a response is much more difficult than verifying a response. Obviously, hallucinations in the enterprise environment is like, there are potentials to have catastrophic issues. And so has OpenAI started applying some of those new techniques discovered in that paper to the models, and like, how are you thinking about delivering that to your enterprise customers?
Yeah, I think we published the research paper, and I think whatever learnings we have, we will incorporate and into our future systems, right? That's definitely an ongoing thing. And I think one of the things we do talk about is that, you know, it's easier for a model to say something than to say, I don't know it, right? And how do you teach the models to say when they don't know? And I think that is trainable, I think, in the future. The second thing I would say, especially in the enterprise context, is that learning to use tools is such a profound and fundamental capability, right? And so when the models are trained to learn to use tools, they can verify the results of the answers. Like, you know, the model is not responsible for saying something is correct or not. It is going to just invoke a tool which can decide whether it is something is correct or not.
Right.
And it's a little bit like humans too, right? Like if I ask you to multiply two very large numbers, you can do it. If I ask you to do it quickly, you might be incorrect. But if I ask you to say, hey, here's a calculator, can you go do it? You're going to learn to use that tool. And that's why we've been trained, right? We've been trained to use tools. And I think we are entering the era where AI is learning to start to use tools, and there's a lot more tools in an enterprise context. And I think we are entering this era where these AI systems are learning how to use all these variety of tools in enterprises. And then the more and more it learns to use these tools, you're going to start seeing the hallucinations reduce there as well.
Yeah, and one last thing on that, there was a kind of a viral response from GPT-5, which there was some prompt, and then it simply said, I don't know and I can't verify it. And it went completely viral. Elon Musk tweeted on it, and it's because, like, oh, we haven't really seen that before, and it's such like an obvious thing to do. If you don't know, say you don't know, but it's really hard, as you said, for the models to do that. And I think people will be more trusting in the models if they see that more often. I think it's really cool.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when you think about your enterprise relationships and partnerships, this is something I've been told since the beginning of my career. I come from a go-to-market background, but it's, you have speed, quality, cost. Pick two of those things. And I don't know if that applies in your world, but maybe it does. And if it does, like, how do you think about optimizing those three variables? And maybe instead of quality, it's accuracy for the models.
What are enterprises asking for of those three? All of them.
Yeah, I think generally they do ask for all of them. But I would say the most important thing is to continue to keep pushing the frontier on quality. We see this time and time again, right? Like, the model quality and being best in doing your job is probably what matters first and foremost. And that's what we care about. We want to be at the frontier. We want to have the best intelligent models that can solve your task really, really well. And that's kind of what we focused on, push the frontier of intelligence. Once we push the frontier of intelligence, then we make it fast, and then we make it cheap, right?
love
So that's
that.
roughly
Makes a lot of sense, yeah.
what I
Yeah.
would say people want to
Well
see.
said, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And like as enterprises build on top of you, something I've been thinking about is, you rolled out GPT-5, and you probably have minor version bumps all the time. How does an enterprise building on top of you, which their entire scaffolding, their entire workflows depend on a very specific version, very specific personality of a model, how do they make sure that stays consistent? How do they make sure that there's not like a little system prompt change that is going to break their workflows? How do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, this is a new way of software writing and getting used to it. I would say there's both pros and cons here, right? And like you said, you're highlighting the cons, which is what if the model behavior changes and something that I'm used to doing breaks. But on the flip side, every time you're releasing a new model, it is completely changing the Pareto frontier of what you're able to do.
Yeah.
And all the things that you weren't able to do are getting solved. I think in net, that's a way bigger positive that people are actually excited about than worrying about just the one or two things that they weren't able to do, right? But to address that, I do think the right thing to do for a lot of companies is to create evals that are representative, right?
Evals.
And evals, right?
Yeah.
And that is sort of like your safety net, and use the evals to see whether in aggregate how these models are improving. Model personality and things, we have actually learned a lot over the last year. Actually, one of the big lessons from GPT-5 is people really had very, very strong opinions about how GPT-4 used to respond to them,
Oh, yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
like we sort of didn't, I think, maybe take it as seriously as we should have, but we learned our lessons, right? And we responded very quickly once we launched GPT-5, and so we are learning here as well. But I think going back to enterprises, that I think people are generally excited about what new is possible, and I think you have safety nets for kind of minimizing, okay, let's not regress on the old things.
Yeah, and so kind of aside from attachment to the personality of GPT-4o, like GPT-4o responded much different than GPT-5. And in fact, you guys put out an entire migration guide.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you use 4o, here's how to migrate your prompts and your response thinking and all of that. So are those kind of major changes happening frequently under the hood, or is it only when we see major version bumps like a 4.0 to a 5?
Usually it's on very major bumps. I
Okay.
think when we do smaller iterations, I don't think things change that profoundly. But the interesting thing is our whole field is changing so quickly, so when does major bumps happen is also an interesting question, right? If you're used to the old software building, like things change in order of years, and here it's changing in order of quarters or order of months. And but like I said, I do think it's like a challenge we have to embrace. And we will give you tools like to migrate from one to the other if there are major changes. But what we observe more and more is that there is just more excitement for the new things that it's possible. And we don't hear like, it's not like people don't want the change, it's more about how do we help them manage the change.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You hear a number of stories from startups where they were like, hey, we were building this thing and the model just couldn't do it. And then one day the new version dropped and all of these new capabilities were there and we're able to accomplish it. It is exciting. And I want to continue on that for a moment. When companies are building on top of OpenAI, I think Sam Altman talked about this in an interview. There's always the chance OpenAI is going to start competing with your customers. And I'm wondering how you think about that when partners are building on top of you. Like, where is the delineation between, okay, we're definitely not going to head in that direction, or like some confidence to builders on top of OpenAI?
Yeah, I think we're going to be transparent and telecasting our roadmap and what's coming and what to expect. We have a dev day coming up in probably a month or so.
Yeah, we'll be there.
6th, yeah,
it's exciting.
And so I think you're going to hear more about it. But I think I agree. In general, people are always curious about where OpenAI is heading. And we're going to do our best job telecasting the future for, hey, here's how we think about our roadmap. We're absolutely, our mission is to ensure AGI benefits all of humanity. There is no way we're going to help all of humanity benefit if we don't have a partner ecosystem, if we don't have developers building on us. We absolutely care about their success, so we want to be on this journey together. We are building some products ourselves, right? But I think we believe in transparency, and every time we have entered products or where we think there is potential for people who are building on our platform, we actually tell them ahead of time, even before we release. I would say one example is search, right? Like we had partners who were building on our API, who were building search products on top of us. And then maybe roughly a year or so ago, we launched our own search in ChatGPT, right? But we kind of told them ahead of time that this is something we're working on. And I think the clarity is important, but I would say we try to build very, very broad general purpose horizontal things that are very common across many industries, and there is enormous opportunity for developers and partners to build interesting applications, and we want to be a great partner for them, and we care about that a lot.
Yeah. Awesome. You mentioned this roadmap. Do you want to give the audience a sneak peek on anything that's coming?
I don't think I can say a whole lot about what's coming.
Wait for
Dev Day.
Worth the ask.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about inference at scale. At the scale of OpenAI, you guys are serving insane amounts of inference to enterprise. Like, what are some of the problems that you faced that were just completely, enormously challenging and exciting to work on that you can share? Maybe it's recent problems and maybe not current ones, but anything you can share about kind of scaling to the level of OpenAI would be wonderful.
I mean, there is really interesting problems. Let me maybe give you two different altitudes, right? Like one is, okay, we have a model. How do you make it run as effectively as possible? How do you make inference fast, cheap, and how do you optimize this in the hardware that we have and in the hardware that's coming? That's a very interesting problem by itself. Lots have been written about it. I don't know if I will, that's an interesting technological problem itself. Maybe one thing that may be less clear to an audience, especially when you run at scale, is I'll touch upon that a little bit. We don't run one model, we run so many different models, right? We have GPT-5, we have GPT-4, we have fine-tunes of various models that people have on this, right? And so the diversity is actually pretty interesting. And now, how do you allocate a fleet and optimize it when you're running so many different models is an interesting problem, because the demand is not constant, right? The demand changes quite a bit, right? So there's a more larger, wider system optimization problem.
On that point, is there anything interesting that you see in terms of usage or demand for older models? Like anything unusual happen there?
Yeah, I think, we sometimes predict how fast people will move to newer things, and sometimes we're surprised. Sometimes it happens way faster than we think it does, and sometimes it's slower. GPT-5 was a good example, right?
Faster or slower? It's faster, right?
I would say there's a lot of customers migrated very quickly, but then in ChatGPT, there was this,
right?
Hey, I really loved how 4.0
the personality
and all that, and so we probably overestimated how fast people were going to move, right? We had to go back to that. So we're learning a lot along this all the time. And the other thing I would say that's also interesting is that our demand also varies throughout the day, right? And so, especially when GPUs are such a scarce commodity, how do you optimize our fleet? Because we have to maybe do allocations aiming for peak capacity. And then when things aren't at peak, how do you optimize the fleet? So there's lots of interesting other system optimization problems.
Are you seeing a lot of fluctuations in usage based on external events, like societal events? Something happens and all of a sudden you see this huge spike. I mean, Twitter is similar. Something big happens, people go to Twitter to find the news, YouTube, similar. Are you seeing that?
We do. I think a great example we had a few months ago is ImageGen. Which was completely crazy. So we launched ImageGen. We knew it was a really good model, and but how viral it became, we had one of the fastest growths in a matter of weeks. We had 100 million users in a week or so, right? It is pretty crazy at our scale, and our entire teams were up for several days figuring out. I think we actually did a podcast around this. In an engineering technically focused one. All of our systems were breaking, and we had to fix our file systems, we had to fix our databases, we didn't have GPU capacity, we didn't have cheap CPU capacity. So that's one example, when the entire world gets really excited about a model advance, and we didn't anticipate how viral it was going to become. So
when the GPUs melt,
everything's melting.
It's interesting because I think creative endeavors are a great entry point for a lot of people into artificial intelligence. Imogen
Yeah.
is one great example. VO from Google, like
Yeah.
they saw huge influxes of new users because of these models. How do you translate that to enterprise? Because I don't think enterprise is going to be as using the kind of creative models as much, or correct me if I'm wrong, but how do you translate that kind of entry point into the enterprise?
Yeah, I think there are lots of interesting creative use cases in enterprises too, right? Like, content creation, whether it's marketing, whether it's other sorts of content creation. And I think video models are actually improving quite a bit. So I think we probably are in the earlier stages of how creativity is being applied in companies. And I think you will see a lot of interesting use cases there as well. Right?
Okay.
I think communication is like, especially in companies, it's like, how do you tell the story? How do you communicate with your audiences, whether it's internal, whether it's external, and how you're going to use AI to help you in that story? I don't think we have said enough of these like use cases, maybe talked about it as much. It's easier to talk about it in the consumer lens because things are viral and it's easier to adopt, but I actually think the opportunity is there in enterprises too.
Yeah.
Okay. And we talked about evals. I want to go a little bit deeper on that for a minute. What evals are you particularly excited about? Because a lot of the like math, science, coding, these evals are getting saturated. The models are incredible. What new evals do you think are necessary to test the trajectory of the models? And then separately, for enterprise use cases, how should enterprises be thinking about building their own evals?
Yeah, I think this is one of the big hard open questions that we are starting to work on. We actually just talked about it, just tweeted about it. We even formed a team really focused on real world eval creation. I think going back to this, what is interesting about this generation of evals is that with reasoning models, it's not just like prompts and labels, right? Like it is what is the entire environment that you need to capture. Because the models with reasoning are operating in a much larger context, and the context engineering is really important. And what context are you giving the models to think about and reason about and do hard tasks is really important. So when the world has shifted towards that, how do you capture enough of that in your evals, right? It's not just a prompt and a response, it's the context around the model. And so how do you capture enough of the context around the model, right? What's the harness look like? What do graders look like? Because as the evals or the tasks are getting more complex, you need a way to evaluate them. And the evaluation is not just, oh, did a human, it's more nuanced, right? And so we are seeing these evals from capturing grading to capturing the context and the hardness that the model is operating in.
Yeah.
And I think this is there's lots of interesting problems to figure out, and how do we scale this is going to be one of the most interesting challenges for us to work on. And we're trying to partner with companies and figure out, we have a deployment, we go and work with the customer, they try something, and then we have feedback, right? It's working in some cases, it's not working in some cases, and there's qualitative feedback here. Companies also don't want to share their unique data sets back with you because it's proprietary to them. So there's lots of really interesting challenges in figuring out how do you translate the feedback into something very actionable in a way that we can capture and improve our models, right? I think there's tremendous amount of innovation that is actually waiting to happen in this space, and we're going to do some of it, but we're also really excited to see what the community is going to do here.
So for the companies that you're working with, what are you telling them to focus on in their evals? So we probably have a lot of enterprise leaders watching this. What would you tell them to focus on in their actual evaluations for their use case?
So it's again goes back to the problem you're trying to solve, the task you're trying to capture. And what is the information that is necessary for the model to operate on, and how do you represent that in a way that a model can act on, especially when you have reasoning models? And how do you create graders that can tell you whether the model is doing its job or not? Right. So it is all of these components, and you have to find a way to capture that and represent that. And I think the opportunity for AI to solve harder problems is really there. And I think we have work to do on how do you capture all of that in a way that you can see if the model is working or not.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say probably is, what are the connectors that you need, right? Like AI is not just operating in isolation. It is operating in a very specific environment in your business, which means it has to have access to applications, it has to have access to data sources. And so how do you represent all that so that the model can actually go and do its job?
Right, and you need to be evaluating against the tool
Against
used
that,
for that.
correct.
How good is it at retrieving some piece of information? How good is it at synthesizing something else? Yeah,
Right.
I gotcha.
It's the tool use, like all of that together. Yeah.
Okay. Srinivas, thank you so much for joining us, man. It's been a pleasure.
This was
Awesome. Yeah, really nice
you.
talking to you both, and good luck for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
for
Srinivas.
coming.
Welcome back anytime. All right.
I mean, very interesting.
Great first guest.
Yeah, great first guest. Well, I know our second guest is here, but
We have a few stories.
We should chat first.
Yeah. Coming up, Matan Grinberg, CEO of Factory AI.
He's a friend of the show.
Yeah, friend.
Yeah. All right. By the way, I think people are starting to.
Yeah,
flock in
they're
a
gonna
little bit.
funnel in quite a bit more too. It's definitely getting louder in here.
All right, Alex, let's bring up this next story. Look, I mean,
The first hint of what's happening.
yeah, but Mira kind of goes silent for a little bit, and then it comes out with an absolute banger of a headline.
Yeah.
Defeating
Yeah.
non-determinism and LLM
Yeah,
inference.
no big deal.
Wow. All right, so we did a little reading on this subject last night, and there's some pretty interesting things going on here.
Give what is thinking machines first of all?
Oh yeah, so this is Mira Murati's lab.
Yeah.
And we have known very little about this lab until
Effectively nothing.
maybe today.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
raised one of the largest, actually the largest seed round in history.
I think it. Yeah.
I think
at the
largest.
time,
Yeah. So there's been a lot of speculation, a lot of hype, but we've known very little.
Mira Murati, former CTO of OpenAI.
OpenAI, yep, exactly.
Co-founder. Yep. So now she's on her own and doing thinking machines.
Yeah. So we all know that as you interact with models, if you ask the exact same question, the output is going to vary because of non-determinism. And that's because these are probabilistic models, and so there's just going to be subtle changes. And through some research, it sounds like the cause, at least according to this blog post, is that the kernels on the GPU, the little kernels that do the tiny math programs.
Great explanation.
Yeah, this is really
That's the extent of my understanding of it
Same
too.
here.
Yeah.
They don't always run in the same order, right? So there's variance, and that little variance creates totally different outputs.
Yeah.
And so they are solving for that problem. And just to continue that point, like obviously that variance in certain use cases is interesting. If you and I both make the same image prompt and it's a totally different image, that's kind of fun. Who cares?
Yeah.
But in business use cases, in situations with high stakes that the outcome has to be the same and consistent, this becomes very problematic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
healthcare, enterprise.
Yes.
And so what they're really trying to achieve is you type in the same prompt. This is a very simplistic explanation, but you type in the same prompt and you get the same output every single time.
Every single time.
It just, I don't fully understand how that would work given the non-deterministic nature of models.
Yep.
But they are much smarter than me, and I guess we'll see. I thought when we first talked about this last night, I thought maybe it was the way that the GPUs were architected,
Right.
and there's a lot of randomness. So when the Grok CEO told me this, GROQ, when you use an NVIDIA chip with CUDA, you don't always know when you put an instruction in how long it's going to take, what it's going to come back with.
Yep.
But with a Grok chip, you do. It's like symmetrical. You always know, I'm going to put this instruction in. I know exactly how long it's going to take, and that's how they're able to achieve their incredible inference speeds. I thought that may be related to what we're hearing there with this, but you don't think so?
It doesn't sound like it. Your explanation makes complete sense to me. If you think about any manufacturing process, whether it's a car, actually maybe a car is a good example. A car rolls off the lot, one's a lemon, the next one isn't, right? And so that variance in the manufacturing process seems to exist and would affect something like this, but that's not the case.
Yeah,
according to
and
Mira.
we're seeing the novelty is it's a software level path to deterministic AI.
Yeah.
So no fundamental changes to the hardware architecture, a pure software level path. It's exciting. I mean, yeah, why not? That's great.
Why not?
Let's see it. Let's see it in action.
We'll share updates when we see them.
All right, this next one's fun.
Yeah, this is a good one. All right, so We have CEO Alex Karp says LLMs are useless for your business without Palantir. Is that a hot take, or is that a hot take?
Okay, I don't know if that's necessarily exactly what I mean, he effectively said it, but
I'm just reading a tweet here. This is
yeah. Read the quote.
He goes on. All right, so this is the quote from the actual video. One of the things Silicon Valley totally effed up is an overhyping of the value of LLMs. An LLM is a raw material, like you alluded to earlier. Yeah. That has to be processed. The processing of the LLM will change America and the world.
Right. So I actually agree with that framing. The raw LLM is only so useful. If you're just asking basic questions, Q&A, great, but it's only when you attach memory, when you give it tool calling, when it's allowed to search the web, computer use, guardrails, all of those features of the model make it incredibly valuable. So in that sense, his analogy of it being a raw material and you need to process that raw material, the processing is not only that kind of ancillary tooling and memory and all that, but it's also the context of the use case. And I think that's like his point, like, oh, you need us. Of course, because he's going to take the raw material, bring it to the enterprise, learn about the enterprise, forward deployed engineers all day.
Right.
Yeah.
Learning about the enterprise is key. I think it's like the domain knowledge that makes it so important and valuable. And then it's the implementation. Like, how do you actually implement it successfully, integrate it into workflows, create automations around it, and how do you do that with high efficacy? Yeah,
I mean, this is going to be a theme of this show, and we've been talking about it a little while. Scaffolding is all you need. We're going to be talking to Matan in a moment. Like, and we asked certain of us, like, if you're building on top, or if somebody's building on top of your model, like the competitive advantage is everything they're building on top of it. It is not the core model. So the platform risk is real, but also it's important to understand it's everything else around it that's also incredibly valuable.
Right. Cool. Let's move on to one more, and then we'll bring on our second guest. All right, so we introducing Oasis 2.0, our most advanced AI model transformation game, worlds and styles in real time. So this is kind of just a fun one. I mean, I love seeing these world models, these games come out. Like, I think the differentiator with this one is being able to upload kind of your own style, your own preferences, and how you want the game to
real time,
look.
Though, as you're playing the game.
Yeah,
as you're playing the game.
Pretty incredible.
It is.
I think we take this stuff for granted now because we see it so often, but this is incredible.
It's actually funny how much we take for granted in the AI world.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you didn't answer my question perfectly, like magic intelligence in the sky.
I have completely become numb to innovation, I think.
Yeah, and if they took it away from me, I would be basically nothing. I would not be able to function.
I would not be able to work.
Yeah, this is really cool. I'm looking at it on your computer there.
Yeah.
It's cool because it's real time. I believe it's diffusion based. So they're actually running it. It's a diffusion model that they're running against a video feed. I think, hopefully I'm right about that. We'll put it in the show notes. You can do some research for yourself. But yeah, it looks really cool. Future of video games, Elon Musk thinks is going to be end-to-end neural networks, essentially generating pixel by pixel. I tend to think all software is going to be that way. And so this is just another step in that direction.
It's really hard for me to even conceptualize what that looks like, right? Yeah. But it is an interesting take.
Yeah.
All right, I think it's time. I think we should bring on our next guest.
Let's do it. We have our next guest, Matan Grinberg, CEO of Factory AI. Come on down, Matan.
Hey guys.
Welcome.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you, buddy.
Oh no, the mic. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, please. Yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us at Boxworks.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
All right, so first, tell us who you are, what you do at Factory. What is Factory?
Yeah, I'm Matan, co-founder and CEO at Factory. At Factory, our mission is to bring autonomy to software engineering. What that means more concretely is we are building end-to-end software development agents called droids. These droids focus on not just the coding part, but the full end-to-end software development lifecycle, all the ugly stuff, whether it's legacy migrations, documentation, testing, of course coding as well. But I think differentiatedly, we're focused on those other parts that are maybe less conducive to fancy demos like coding is, but take a lot of engineers' time, make them suffer. We want to get rid of all of that suffering that they have to do.
So you
actually, just real quick question on that. So And this might be a fairly hard, open-ended question, but if you succeed in this mission, what does the world look like? What can I expect software engineering to look like if you succeed in that mission?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think something that's really important about what we're doing here is thinking about it at like a macro level. Almost every single company has some set of tasks that they want to get done, goals or features that they want to ship on a quarterly basis, let's say. And if anyone's actually been at a large organization, you know that you often have like 100 ideas and only 3 that you can actually ship. With Factory, when we are kind of spread everywhere and everyone has access to tools like these droids, you're able to ship so much faster and deliver features to your customers so much faster, so that at the end of the day, why are you shipping these features? To solve their problems. And so when the cost of each problem to be solved goes down because now it takes less engineering hours, that means we can solve more problems for, across the board. Whether it doesn't matter what vertical it is. Like, you might think at first, it's the like SF-based AI companies that are adopting these things. But at the end of the day, software solves problems across the board for people all over the world, whether it's like healthcare or infrastructure. And by lowering that barrier to entry, we now kind of lower the threshold of what scale of complexity we can use software to solve, if that makes sense. So problems that right now it's like, oh, that's too expensive to solve with software. Right. With Factory, that barrier goes down and we end up solving more problems.
Yeah, there's this long tail of problems that were economically inefficient to solve.
Yes.
And if you're compressing the time, decreasing the cost on solving those, all of a sudden there's this entire universe of problems that previously just didn't make sense, and now we can go after them.
Absolutely. Like, you could say, I think that's a perfect point. Like, maybe right now, let's say the threshold for solving a problem in a way that, there's economic incentive, it might be, this is a problem that 10 million people have.
Right.
And if less than 10 million people have it, there's no economic incentive to solve it. With Factory, maybe that threshold now becomes 1 million or 100,000 or 10,000. Eventually we'll be in a world where if there's a problem that 100 people have, there's like a viable business, or there's a viable like reason to actually build the software to solve it.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to ask about this because it was fascinating. You had a man versus machine hackathon.
That's right.
And obviously, like, being the CEO of Factory, you were very bullish on the people actually using. Just explain what man versus machine, that hackathon is. How did you set it up, and how did you make it fair? And that question will make sense when you explain it.
Yeah. So originally this came out of a tweet that I saw, which someone was basically just like, they should make a man versus machine hackathon in SF, where it's like, you can either only have agents or you only have humans. Now, the actual setup there is a little bit hard to have a concrete study if you're like just using agents, because then the interaction pattern there is a little confusing. And we partnered with Meter, who recently put out a really interesting study about the effectiveness of IDE assistance, or lack thereof, because it actually turned out that some of the benefits were a little bit it was almost like a placebo, where you feel like you're more productive when you use an AI coding tool in the IDE, but it turned out from their initial study that might not have been the case. So we had this idea of, all these tools are coming out there. People say everyone's a 10x engineer, 1000x engineer, all that stuff. Some people are, some engineers are like, I don't need any of those tools. I just do it all myself. And so this was kind of a way of putting that to the test. And so the rules here were, we brought in around 400 teams, and you were randomly assigned to either AI, so machine, or
random.
man. So
Nice.
Had to be random, otherwise it would be, there's some
Did you hear a lot
selection
of
bias.
groans when they had to write code themselves?
Well, funny enough, 2 teams quit and left when they found out that they were going to have to use no AI tools. Like, they legitimately just like,
we were talking
about
about
it.
It's like, if you take AI away from me, I'm just going to be like in a fetal position.
So 2 people actually did that, and they like literally left,
That's
which
so
was
funny.
which is pretty amazing.
What is the setting of this, by the way? Was it just at the office, or?
This was at a venue in SF.
Okay, so it's
like in the heart of
high
San Francisco.
production.
Yeah, like hundreds of people there.
Awesome.
We did it jointly with like Raindrop, Meter, OpenAI, Anthropic.
So what were the rules of the competition?
Yeah.
What did they have to build?
So assigned randomly. So random assignment to these teams. If you're on the man team, you can't use any AI tools, but you can use like Google search. You can use like Stack Exchange, like all that stuff. And if you're on the AI or the machine side, you can use any AI tools you want. So we weren't actually prescriptive about, you need to use this or that.
If you're on the AI side, can you write code by hand?
Yes.
Yes.
So unfortunately, so originally the idea was to make it purely like to handicap the machine side a
Like
little bit
true
by
vibe
saying
coding.
like you can't type any code yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the to get a proper like A/B test working with Meter, it had to be a little bit more like control group, no AI, versus group, has the option to do any. So I think next though we're going to do something more like that. I have some idea. Well, let's talk in a bit about some ideas of what the V2 will look like. But so what we did was so no AI, machine. You can use whatever AI tools you want, and judging was blind. So you were able to do whatever project you wanted. Judges, came in, saw the project, and had to grade them across a couple different axes, like technical depth, like all the kind of standard hackathon stuff. And the point was just that they were blind and wouldn't have awareness a priori of which was man, which was machine. And then we kind of had results of net winner, and then the winner for man, winner for machine. Machine won.
Okay. Was it obvious or was it close?
Yeah.
So talking to the judges, and some of the judges actually worked at Factory, so they gave us a debrief as well of like what their perspective was. It sounded like the thoughtfulness of the kind of the system design and the approach for the man projects were a lot higher. Like there was just a lot more thoughtfulness in the way that they approached it, and you can kind of tell.
Yeah.
And actually, I actually haven't looked at this, but one of the guys from our team was like, I actually bet I was like 100% on guessing if it was man or machine, because you can kind of smell if it's like a
lot of comments.
Like you can tell, like even just looking at it, are there a lot of gradients and like purple, like that's super AI coded.
Yeah.
Versus if it's like super thoughtful, like intricate design, then generally that's probably more likely to be man. But at the end of the day, machine did win.
So each team can build whatever they want, and it was more about the quality of the code. And, okay.
Quality of code, thoughtfulness of that, like the final result. Like, was it a cool project? Was it interesting?
What was the winning project?
The winning project. I actually don't want to butcher it because there's some details. There were some details I think in the judging where there were two that were kind of up there. So I'll have to check which one was the exact winner.
All right, we'll drop it in the show notes so people can check it out.
The machine winner was slightly less cool than I think what should have been the winner. So we'll have the full report out there.
Okay. When roughly can we expect the full report?
So Meter's going to do a proper study. So we're going to have like a full paper, like all that on the results, which is going to be pretty sick.
Okay. Can't wait to see it.
It's also pretty interesting because we were like sweating a little bit of, our whole thesis is that these dramatically increase the output of every engineer.
Sure.
And it was like, it'd be pretty crazy if machine didn't win. But it made sense if you see the net output of each of the machine projects. Generally, like you could kind of tell the scope of what they were able to take on was better. But I think the fact that the projects on the man side were so kind of thoughtful and different, like it's very distinct, I think emphasizes the fact that humans have a very important role to play in software development.
Right.
Like this is not going to be automated away. These are kind of just like different types of angles that we can.
I was going to say,
with.
if you break up a software project into multiple phases, it seems like you were identifying certain phases that the human was actually excelled in. And whether that was speccing out the idea or just being thoughtful about all of the different intricacies. Like, is that fair to say?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Yeah. And I think it kind of tracks loosely to humans. Like there's some human engineers that are better at certain parts of software development than others. Yeah. And this is kind of just like a very distinct, like we know there are certain strengths. For example, like AI is going to be better at doing a lot of scaffolding. And so having a human spend time on that, it's just like, why set yourself up for failure? You're like, you're not going to be able to write it as fast. Meanwhile, something that's a very critical decision of like something about systems design or scoping or understanding deeply like how your customers might engage with something, making that final call, having that taste, that's something that I think is really, really hard to give AI.
I mean, that's what I personally believe in the future. Taste is going to just increase in value, human taste, because when we have this poor ratio of signal to noise, being able to choose from all of that signal or the noise to actually kind of pluck out the really good signal and deliver amazing experiences for humans, curated experiences, is going to be an insanely valuable skill set.
Totally.
And I want to continue down that path. I mean, as you're building Factory, you are automating more and more of the software developer's job. Have you seen pieces of it where either the developer loves doing it and wants to continue doing it manually and can do it better than agents?
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, developers really enjoy, like, why do people become developers in the first place? It's not because they, I mean, okay, some people do, but it's not because they generally like typing code. That's not the reason people become developers. They become developers because they love problem solving, and they love thinking about things in this kind of systems, like interconnected way where the solution is not obvious. There are multiple approaches, and the different approaches have different trade-offs, and if you're very clever, you might find one that actually optimizes based on all of these things. And you know, doing certain refactors or migrations in the planning stage might have some of that thoughtfulness, but in the actual implementation it might not. And so things that involve a lot of like repetitive implementation, developers generally don't like doing and are really happy to use something like Factory to solve for. And it generally like levers up the frequency with which they are doing the types of problems that they like doing, which is, here's some seemingly like insurmountable or complicated task. Let me figure out how am I going to orchestrate these agents to go and solve this effectively. And I think they still get to do that. So writing docs, yeah, sure, maybe there's some developers out there who really like writing docs, and they can still do that. But also for the developers that don't, they can now go and delegate, you know, writing docs to a droid, and they're a lot happier because they can go and do higher leverage things.
And okay, so you mentioned droids. I want to talk about the decision to break out kind of the like an Omni model, an Omni product into individual droids. Like what was the thinking behind that? Does that added complexity to a developer's decision making during their kind of workflow? What was the thinking there?
So the idea there is like, obviously general purpose agents are very powerful, but thinking about the pros and cons of man versus machine, when you know, let's say, for documentation, you know what your documentation workflow looks like. So why have a general agent pursue that when you know there are simplifying assumptions that you can make? So whenever you have a stochastic system and you want to optimize for like production success, you want to provide guardrails whenever you can. And so droids are a way of providing guardrails to say, for this workflow, we know, let's say, I don't know, for a random enterprise, they might have their docs in Confluence or in Notion. If we know that, why set up a general agent that's going to go and look through everywhere when we know our docs are here? Like, this is how we do it. We then check in this spot, then we write it according to this style guide. Like, when you can have simplifying assumptions to increase like the odds of success, it's always good to do that. Yeah. Now, we also, with these droids, we put a lot of that in the hands of the developers themselves so that they can adjust those guardrails as their own development processes change. But having that mentality, I think, is really helpful because it's kind of similar to if you onboarded an engineer to your team and you just kind of had them derive from first principles the best way to write tests every time they write tests, that's not very efficient. Yeah. Generally, you'll come up with some standard procedure for here's how we do things, and having droids like specialized on each of these tasks is kind of a way of doing that.
That makes sense. So as you execute on your product roadmap, is the idea to get more and more specialized droids, or do you imagine that since you have a good understanding of how the software development process works, you have a good understanding of which droids need to exist, and after that there's this long tail of droids that could exist, but it's probably less valuable? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting question. I think because you have two competing things. On the one hand, you have the general purpose models getting better, which means that in theory the scaffolding that you need goes down. But then on the other hand, the complexity of software that we're building is growing. Right? Like as we have now the ability to create very, very complicated software, we can now ship a lot faster. Each developer has like 100x the leverage. Then the complexity grows, so then maybe the need for scaffolding grows as well. We're trying to stay pretty open to how the teams that we're working with want to develop. And so, we actually, with some of the larger enterprises that we work with, we give them an SDK that allows them to even build customized droids for certain workflows that they have that we might not have predicted. Because really, like, orgs that have 50,000 engineers, let's say, there are so many niche things that they do that no one else does. Meanwhile, there are a lot of simplifying assumptions that we can make for solo developers that we work with. Generally, the way that a solo developer works has less like permutations of complexity than the way a 50,000 person engineering org works. So it kind of depends on who we're working with. Yeah. Having an SDK is a tried and true method of being like, you're developers, you're smart, you know your own problems. We're giving you the tools to solve them.
So I want to switch to a context window for a moment. we interviewed the Augment Code CEO, and he was talking about 200K context window is plenty. They're really good at memory management. They're really good at context management. And it was a little surprising to me. I really thought, okay, if we can go from 200K to 1 million to 2 million, that's just going to continue to give more breathing room to add more context, better understanding. What are you seeing at Factory? Are you like, nah, 200 is enough, 200K, or hey, give me all the context, we can always use it?
I think it depends a lot on the quality of context. So like there were a lot of models, especially I think a year ago, that were really all about like 1 million tokens of context, infinite context,
Right.
whatever. Yeah, you can have infinite context, but if it's like, if you have infinite context, then none of the context has like high attention. And so then it's like, how do you know what the model is actually focusing on? And so, you know, in the dream where you throw in a whole code base for context and it actually has deep insight and understanding about all of it, in theory, that's great. But then the downside is, okay, you threw in 1 billion tokens of context, that's gonna be really expensive.
Right.
You just wanted to add one comment, one line comment,
Right.
and you just used 1 billion tokens. That cost you $1 million to add that one comment. So at the end of the day, even if you can have all the context, the reality is, for most situations, you don't need all of that context. And so if you can have a cheap way of actually figuring out, like if you had a magic wand and for every problem, you always plucked out the necessary and sufficient context to get it done, then that's cheaper and faster
Right.
to do it. So might as well. But in some cases, maybe you're really lazy and you don't want to figure out what is the necessary and sufficient context.
Yeah.
In which case, fine, throw it all in the context window, pay a lot of money, and you know.
Yeah, it feels very similar to previous like database management. You're not doing everything through a SQL database. You're caching in some respects. You're doing other tricks. So you're always trying to optimize for speed, cost,
And latency.
right.
Yeah.
And so that's obviously one of Factory's competitive advantages is how you manage context, how you think about all of these different trade-offs. But you know, ultimately, Factory, and I asked OpenAI about this, you guys are built on model providers, and
Yes.
that's kind of the intelligence core. How do you think about that platform risk? Is it something you think about frequently? And how do you differentiate against, you know, when OpenAI has Codex, and how do you think about that competition?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what the model providers are doing is, first of all, fantastic on the model side of things. Of course, they're building applications as well because it makes sense. They want to get data to train their models and do some RL there. I think the reality is you kind of suffer from being so general purpose. And when they're so general purpose, they can't build for the niche, whatever, 50,000 person Njoorg that we're working with. That said, it is a pie that is growing so dramatically that like worrying that they're getting a little bit more pie while there's so much that we have in front of us, I think is just not productive.
Yeah.
Certainly, like if you were to ask me, is, you know, the number of people using any given model provider for code via their application going to grow? The answer is yes, 100% it will. I think right now that's not something that we work about because the number of people that are using Factory for coding is growing even faster, and there is so much that we can do collaboratively, like us and the model providers. We have deep relationships with every single one of them, and the reason is because they know that it's important to have that ecosystem, because the second you lose that trust, then none of the tools are going to use any given model provider.
Absolutely, and not only that, you're able to choose the best model regardless of which provider it comes from. Whereas if you're an OpenAI, if you're Anthropic, you're not, well, I assume you're not going to use your direct competitors' models.
And this is something that people actually really like about Factory, is we're one of the few platforms that gives you, we're fully agnostic to your IDE, we're fully agnostic to the model that you want to use. We're even agnostic to like like you can use us on the web, in the IDE, in the CLI, on your phone. Like it's truly like kind of anywhere you want it, which comes from the first principle that we believe in, which is like, if you have a human colleague, like if I wanted to talk to you, it's not a different version of you that I talk to when it's on email versus the phone.
Right.
It's not like phone Matt Berman versus email Matt Berman. It's like, it's the same fundamental person that you're speaking to.
Ex Matt Berman is a little different.
I guess
it's slightly different.
Yeah.
No, but at the end of the day, it's the same kind of agent that you're interacting with, and I think that's really important for us.
Yeah.
Can we actually stay on the Factory train of thought here? I just want to know, like, what's coming? What are you excited about? Like, what are the big meaty problems you're working on right now? Like, just Give us the insider scoop
Yeah, I
here.
mean, I think the biggest thing is going GA on this kind of interface agnostic approach. Because right now, most of the people have seen us on the web platform, but having access to us on every interface, I think is going to be really, really exciting. Some of the early users who've been accessing it thus far have been much more excited about anything that we've ever released before, which to me is obviously, it's...
What does that mean, any interface? Does that mean you're going to be showing up in VS Code as well? And, oh, yeah.
Anywhere you as a developer are, literally anywhere you are working, you will be able to delegate tasks to droids.
Yeah.
Anywhere you are. So one of us, we were talking at the office, one of us needs to get one of those smart fridges so that we can try it out from there. Because when we say interface agnostic, we mean really any interface.
I want to see it on iWatch, Apple Watch.
Yeah, that you can do right now. Like Slack, Linear, Jira, anywhere.
Oh, even without like a traditional interface,
yes,
just a text
scriptably
chat?
via SDK, like all of it.
Okay,
yeah, interesting.
Let's talk a minute about the changing software landscape.
Yeah.
I asked Srinivas about this. He just came on. I've asked Satya Nadella about this. I've asked a bunch of leaders. I want to ask you, as an AI leader, agents all the way down. As kind of the application layer starts to be consumed by agents, how are you thinking about that, and how are you thinking about helping your customers build those agents?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think there are a couple principles that are important to keep in mind. So some people talk about ephemeral software or ephemeral interfaces or dynamic, like these things will just pop up and disappear. We're humans. We like I don't know if you remember, like when on iPhone they switched the Photos app, but like they switched the organization. I don't know how to use my Photos app anymore. We like predictability. We like things to be where we expect. We have like routines and behaviors, and we can build habits. So we know on the UI end, humans like predictability. We're open to change, but not every time. Like we want something to look the same loosely. So that's one thing. Like there is some need for consistency there, like as a user. Now on the other end, like you're talking about agents all the way down, and the talk of like sub agents or like agent for this or that. I think it brings to mind like what is the definition of an agent? How do you define like the identity, or is this one or multiple? I think it's eventually going to be thought of similar to how we think of standard software, which is like, or standard APIs, which is you call an API to get something done. You have loosely predictable inputs and outputs, and it's just kind of another tool in the toolkit for software developers. And so I think there are going to be behaviors that change. In particular, the thing that's top of mind for us is the behavior change going from thinking about how can I write this line of code to complete this function, to complete this file, to instead, how can I package up this feature description or this scoping or this task and define the success criteria so I can delegate it to an agent.
Yeah.
I think delegation is about to be the new primitive that we think about when it comes to building software or working with agents. And it's going to make everyone think a little bit more like an engineering manager, where if you have a junior engineer and you say, hey, go write me that, and you don't give them any guidance, chances are they might make some mistakes.
Yeah.
Whereas if you set them up for success, say, hey, here's the docs that define our contributing guides, here's how you succeeded in this task, here's what a successful version of that will look like, then chances are they're going to have a higher odds of succeeding at that task.
So I interviewed you a few months ago and I asked you this question. I want to get an update. Do you still believe with all of these changes, with engineers being able to be 100x, 1000x productive, it is still the best time to be an engineer? Do you think we are going to see a great influx of new engineers, and are they going to be put to work at companies?
Yes, 100%. There is no more important time to be an engineer, to have this understanding of like deep technical problems and systems thinking, understanding how to build with these agents. Like one of the most in-demand roles in the country, in the world right now, is engineers who are very fluent on how to build with agents. Like that is one of the most desired role, and so it really, really frustrates me when people say, oh, don't study computer science, or oh, don't be an engineer. Like half the time people are doing this is because they're fundraising for some of their like AI coding thing, or to me it really pisses me off because it's affecting people's lives and it's factually incorrect and it's damaging to the space because it makes existing developers feel threatened. When in reality, it's like, no, you should absolutely embrace these tools and use these tools because this is going to give you more leverage as a developer.
And so do you, like, is it still your advice to go learn the syntax, go learn the languages themselves, or go learn the tools to build the software?
Both. I think both.
Both
just
still.
like to become a good mathematician, you have to study what the greats of old did,
Yeah.
and it provides context. To become a great now, you need to understand kind of the past that came before you, but they're also, just like there are mathematicians who maybe never studied the history of the greats or whatever, you could probably get away with it. It kind of just creates a different kind of archetype of developer. Like there's some who, were kind of born and bred on just like AI native, and some who studied what came before, studied now, and kind of synthesized both of those.
Yeah.
In a similar vein, in our conversation with Aaron Levy a couple months ago, he was talking about how seems to be like the prevailing idea today is how do you do less with more? How do you shrink your departments and focus on AI? And he had a very interesting perspective on this, and that was that if a department is excelling with the use of AI and they're AI first in everything they do, let's resource that team more. Let's give them more humans to do more with AI, an augmentation as opposed to a displacement or a replacement. Similar to what you're saying is like we still need those humans. It's actually going to be more helpful the more humans we have.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is something that also confuses me when people talk about it. It's like suddenly if you hit your goals for a quarter, you're not like, okay, let's relax next quarter.
Totally.
Right.
Like no one ever does.
well
Like
said.
that's just not. It's not how it works.
Not
So,
in the competitive landscape.
Yeah, it would work if you were the only company in the world to have access to AI.
Right.
But like the reality is everyone does, and so if you knock it out of the park, and your team is like way faster with AI, you're not gonna be like, all right, let's cut half the team.
Let's do
It's
more
like,
of
no,
that.
how do we do even more to absolutely demolish our competitors?
Yeah.
That's the way the free market works. Is like if you suddenly
That is the way the free
really
market works.
outcompete your competitors, you're gonna put more fuel on that fire, not suddenly rest on your laurels.
Absolutely. I agree completely, which is always why it is so common on Twitter and everywhere to say like, white collar bloodbath and this and that. But if you just think about it logically, you have Google and Meta competing against each other. Which one do you think is going to say, oh, okay, as you said, we're done, we hit our goals, cool, we're just going to hang out and chill? No, you're going to double down.
Yep.
You're going to invest more in AI. You're going to invest more in humans to run the AI, to verify the AI. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you agree. I want to ask you about maybe something in a little bit in the weeds. You have something called the reflection engine. I want you to explain in basic terms, what does that actually mean and how is that kind of bolstering your competitive advantage?
Yeah, I mean, so something that's really important for us as we deploy to the enterprise is, like I mentioned at the very beginning, we aren't just restricted to coding, but it's the entire software development lifecycle. And a first principle that we come back to a lot is, if you onboarded a human engineer, what would you do to set them up for success? Now, the way we treat coding agents is jump into the code, go, right? But like you would never do that to a human engineer. You would give them access to Slack, to Linear, to whatever tools that you use for your like internal engineering teams. You would give that human engineer access to. You'd be like, hey, here's our contributing guides, here's our best practices. Oh, by the way, if you want to know an example of like the first task that you're doing actually looks a lot like this one, so make sure you follow the guides there. And importantly, the human will then learn based on that. It's not like they're going to go and submit their first PR and then forget everything and come back the next day and have to relearn it all. And so this is something that we invest in heavily. Is if we're onboarding agents into our engineering org and not giving them the same onboarding experience as we would a human, then they're not going to succeed to the same degree. And so something that we invest in a lot is that kind of context engine to understand the entire engineering org, learn based on it. So you're not just saying, hey, can you write me this function, and it's just going to write some generic ChatGPT output. But no, it'll do it based on how your org builds, where in the code base this is, and what task you're trying to get done.
And so the reflection engine sets up that onboarding process?
It's basically the ingestion and the kind of the process that takes in all of that information, synthesizes insights, and it's kind of the equivalent of a human engineer processing all of that as they learn and forming these like semantic connections between, here's this Jira ticket from a customer that came in, here's the PR that we then submitted that built that feature to satisfy them. There was the Slack thread of their feedback and what they thought. Then here was the outage because we had an issue in how we shipped that feature, and here's how we're going to fix it because these are the details there. It's like synthesizing that information so that the next time some issue comes up, they're not like learning everything from scratch, but they have that memory of, oh, here, here's what happened.
So it's all the context, the minutia, but it's also the domain knowledge, the expertise you need to be effective in that code base.
Exactly.
That's pretty interesting.
And that's dependent on the company that factory is deployed within?
Correct, yeah, because it's all based on like the resources that they integrate in the factory.
What are you most excited about for the rest of this year? What do you got coming?
Oh man, there's so many fun
Man
things.
versus Machine 2.
Man versus Machine 2 is going to be a fun one. So I'll share about that. But I think the biggest thing is
we just guessed that.
Yeah,
we just guessed that, by the way.
The releasing access to this kind of ubiquitous version of Factory.
Yeah.
I think people are really going to freak out about how good it is. I'm just incredibly excited about that. Man versus Machine 2. I think the idea here is going to be engineers, no AI. Non-technical people with AI.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Can I be a judge?
Yeah, let's do it.
Can we sponsor? We'll sponsor.
Let's do it. Let's do it right now.
All right, Matan, thanks so much, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Appreciate you coming. Always a pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, so it is getting busy. It's getting loud in here, right?
Very loud.
So we got a few more news stories we want to go over with you all. And then we bring on our third guest, the man himself, Aaron Levy, CEO of Box. We have some awesome questions for him. But Nick, let's talk about some automation.
I'm seeing some snacks over there. I'm getting a little distracted.
Yeah, do you want to just take a break and go run out?
Yeah. All right, let's pull this guy up. Let me click this. All right. So introducing Alter Ego, the world's first near telepathic wearable that enables silent communication at the speed of thought. Alter Ego makes AI an extension of the human mind. All right, so this is a Boston-based startup, Alter Ego. They've demoed this silent
out of
speech.
MIT.
Oh, MIT, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
This is like a silent speech wearable that reads tiny jaw, throat, neuromuscular signals and turns them into commands. It's non-invasive, according to them.
It does not read your mind,
and
according to them.
And it's not brain reading.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's cool nonetheless. I don't know. Does this live up to expectations, though?
So I've been talking a lot about voice AI and voice as the interface between humans and AI a lot lately.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that. I think when you remove the screens, obviously there's always going to be a need for a screen in some instances. But for the most part, I just want to have a conversation with my AI when I'm driving, when I'm walking, and I wanted to do things on my behalf. I was incredibly bullish on voice, and of course I saw this, and everyone's like, well, of course it's going to be telepathy, right? It's not going to be voice.
Logical next step.
I don't know. Look, if it works and it works effectively, that's great. It has its uses. I can just imagine sitting in a park and just like staring blindly off and like my jaw's slightly moving, and
what's Matt doing over there?
Yeah, it just seems weird. I'm hopeful it'll work, but I also have some doubt. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this technology, I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. We'll see if it actually works.
I think there's some interesting accessibility use cases. People with ALS, MS, I mean, these are debilitating diseases.
I hadn't even thought of that. That's a good call.
And this enables them to communicate with loved ones and friends, potentially, and that's really cool.
Yeah, I think I've been bearish on the glasses form factor.
Yeah.
I just don't want to wear glasses all day. It's uncomfortable. So I really believe like something like AirPods you could just throw in your ear. Yep. That's probably going to be the real entry point for the mass consumption of artificial intelligence. But we'll see. This seems interesting. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to test it. I'll make a video about it. I don't know the release date though, but yeah, more coming soon.
We'll keep an eye on it for sure.
What do we got next?
So this tweet has been making the rounds recently. History repeats itself. We have a bunch of math teachers protesting the calculator and calculator use in schools. Look, I think for me, like,
I'll fix that.
We might need to fix that. So with every technology shift, you have these panics of displacement. You have these questions of well, if the tool does it for you, how do you learn?
Right.
I view this as that. I think we need to change how we assess students in school for comprehension.
Yeah.
But other than that, I just think it's a funny meme to see back in circulation.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I think one thing we talk about quite a bit is empathy towards those who are fearful of new technology.
Sure.
Totally understand it. Like us, we're fortunate. We love technology. We love learning about it. We love adopting it. If you're watching this channel, you probably feel the same way. But of course, there are a lot of people who are afraid of it. So we really want to empathize with them. And we want to do our job to try to teach everybody how to use these tools. We want people to be excited about it because we're excited about it, and we want you to be excited about it. But this is history repeating itself. Every time a new technology has come, there has been protests, there has been refusals to adopt. But as we've seen, it is effectively impossible to stop the march of progress.
Yeah. I feel like my friend group is on different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we have some friends are in it every day like I am, and they understand the power of it because they've seen it firsthand, while others are maybe a little bit more skeptical. And one of my favorite examples is your mom using Perplexity.
Still to this day, sending me Perplexity links proving stuff that I said wrong.
I love it.
Yeah.
Throwing it in your face.
Yeah, and by the way, totally same way, I have the wide spectrum of friends on like the hyper adopters of technology all the way to my best friend who says, "Oh, are you still running your blog?" That's what he thinks I do now. So, you know, you're always going to have the spectrum there.
We do have a blog though, forwardfuture.ai.
Our newsletter, forwardfuture.ai. Check out the newsletter for sure. Let's go to the next one.
Next one. Oh, this is a fun one. So this is frankly, this is the future we were promised decades ago.
Yep.
Jetson Aero, we've just completed our very first Jetson 1 delivery to none other than Palmer Luckey. And the thing that really stands out to me here is this next line, completed ground training in under 50 minutes. 50 minutes. If you were going to get your pilot's license, that takes, I'm pretty sure, at least
a long time.
year.
Yeah, I mean, it's effectively a drone. And if you've ever flown a drone, it's just like you pop it on and you're off. And it's so easy. If you've ever played any video game, you get it immediately. It is it's very hard to make a mistake with modern drones. And it's effectively a big drone. Palmer Luckey, the like man with all the toys. Have you seen what this guy has, by the way? He has like battleships. Like crazy stuff. You know, an eccentric billionaire building out a defense company. Why not? Let me get a Jetson 1. Let me fly around in this little thing.
Let's see him get up in the air.
And that's it. Yeah, it's really cool. Would you fly around? Is this how you're going to commute to work?
Absolutely. Over the bay? Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's funny because I always think back to this thing that Elon Musk said. Like, why do we not have flying cars? Well, flying cars fall. That's why we build down. That's why we build tunnels. Is this kind of like the same thing here?
It might be. I think the risk is worth it, though. All right.
One more story, and then let's bring on our next guest because he's here.
Oh, he is here. All right, fantastic. You know, not super interesting, but there is some excitement in me for this. This is DoorDash delivering by drone. I actually had a bet with my friend, and I think it was 4.5 years ago that I had this bet. I said, within 5 years, we will get food delivery by drone. And so I think I need to he needs to make good on that bet.
Burritos dropped in my lap. Yeah, please. I'll take it.
Yes, all day.
Yeah, I feel like we've been talking about this or seeing this happen for a while, but if DoorDash is rolling it out, plans to test, okay, not quite there yet.
Not quite there
but,
yet.
But I feel like we've been hearing about this for too long. All right, our guest is here. Let's bring him on.
Let's bring him on.
We are going to bring on Aaron Levy, CEO of Box, leading the rollout of secure AI agents, transforming enterprise content to actionable intelligence. Aaron, come on in. Welcome to the show.
What's up, Aaron?
Good to see you.
What's up? How's it going?
Good to see you. Nice to meet you.
Congratulations. Fun day so far.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Happy
you
to be
made
here.
some announcements today.
We did. As you can imagine, it's all things agents. That's about the only thing I think about and care about anymore.
I
But,
see it on your X feed.
It's like family and agents.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working on. So today's big announcements are basically all about how do you bring agents and connect them with enterprise content in a secure way and scalable way. And importantly, in our world, we touch enterprises, workflows that deal with unstructured data. So think like a client onboarding workflow, a healthcare process, contract management. And if you want to be able to deploy AI agents into these workflows, you need to give them guardrails. You need to give them a framework in which they can operate. And so we launched a new capability called Box Automate that lets you design a workflow within Box and then drop in agents at any point in that workflow. So it's really an agentic workflow automation system that is all about automating work around unstructured data at scale.
Okay. And then as you think about automating, like Balaji had this post, I mentioned it earlier, basically AI is really middle to middle, and to really achieve end-to-end automation, you need humans verifying and reviewing the work. Is that what you're seeing? How does the new features you're launching today kind of push the middle to middle outwards?
Yeah, I think you need human verification certainly at different points in these workflows. Probably the thing we care about even more though is the underlying deterministic guardrails in which the agent can operate within. So if you think about you want to run a workflow thousands of times per day or tens of thousands of times per week or month, you want the agents to do as much of the same thing as possible each time. And we know that there's going to be some probabilistic elements to what they actually go and do each time, but you want them to operate within the confines of different steps in a business process. So you want one agent that can go and, let's say it's an insurance claim process, you want one agent to review the insurance claim, then you want another agent to go look at all the underlying photos and videos that are involved in the insurance claim, you want another agent to review the work of those agents, and you actually want clear demarcation points between those agents, because we have things like context rot, the agents would operate on different sets of data each time, so you want to give them the right guardrails in which they can go and do that work. So Box Automate lets you go define that business process in a workflow builder, and then you drop in agents at any point in the process where you want an agent to do the work, but then you can equally have humans at any point in that process as well, then go and review the work of that agent.
Yeah, I mean, you just posted about this on X, and I thought it was fascinating. You said the cost of getting a second opinion from AI is dropping, and I want you to clarify, do you mean if I am a human making a decision, creating some artifact, getting a second opinion on my work, or is it an agent getting a second opinion on another agent, or both?
All agents all the way down.
All of the above.
That's the theme of this show today.
That's the theme of this show. Don't worry, we're going to get that in like 100 times. But no, it's this incredible property of agents, which is, and you're seeing this in coding actually. I think what I did was a quote tweet of somebody that had mentioned, I'd love to be able to have Codex and Claude Code kind of go at it. And see who comes up with the better version of whatever coding project I'm doing. And that's a phenomenon that you're seeing more and more on X, which is, hey, I tried this with 3 or 4 different agentic systems, and then I chose this output as the ultimate result. And why that phenomenon happens is each of these models are trained just differently enough that they produce different outcomes. They use tools in different ways. They deal with system prompts in different ways. So we're nowhere close to this being a commoditized technology where all of the players have sort of uniform input outputs. And so that actually lends itself to saying, hey, because the cost of intelligence has gotten so cheap, I don't mind having 2 or 3 different systems attempt this problem, and I'll ultimately take the best outcome of whatever those agents are working on. So while that wasn't exactly anything that we kind of shared today in our keynote, it certainly stands to reason that in a workflow, you could have different agents review the work of another agent, and you might even want the agents from a different model to do that work. So you might want a GPT-5 agent to review a document, and then a Claude 4 agent go and review the work of that GPT-5 agent. Like, that's entirely plausible. It would be incredibly cheap to do, and it would let you have, again, more second opinions on whatever workflow you're operating.
Yeah, I mean, this is a common approach to getting the most out of large language models. There's, especially in evaluations, you have pass at K, which means we're going to try it a bunch of times, we're going to evaluate and choose the best one. And it's, as these models get better, maybe you need less inference to get a better response, but Javon's paradox, all of a sudden, we're going to be using so much more because we want multiple attempts at it, right?
Yeah. So that was why the whole DeepSeek kind of moment was hilarious, because they're like, wow, like the cost of intelligence is going down by 5x, and it was like, from our kind of purview in the industry, the moment that we saw that happen, our expectation was that we're going to probably spend 10 times more on AI because we can just throw AI at way bigger problems because you'll just run it through data more and more times as you're working through these workflows. And this is what we're seeing. So one of the other announcements today was a new capability called Box Extract. Mm-hmm. And what Box Extract does is it lets you do data extraction with data extraction agents. So we've created a set of agents internally that now we are deploying through Box Extract, where customers can say, here's a contract, here's an invoice, here's a marketing asset, I want you to go extract metadata from that. And part of our way of operating these extract agents on the background is we have them go at, sometimes you'll have them just put the entire document in the context window just for a single field. Sometimes you'll do it to try and get all the fields at once. And so we have an agentic process that will basically determine, based on the document's complexity and what the person's asking, how much compute to throw at the problem. Yeah. But we're really in this interesting point where you can basically just dial up or down the compute and then get different levels of efficacy from whatever workflow you're trying to automate.
Interesting. I have a question. Yeah. So you're very immersed in agents. Box is executing against this agentic roadmap. What surprised you most over the last 2-3 years of that journey?
Yeah.
Like, what really stands out to you being like, oh, that's not exactly how I thought it would play out?
Yeah. Well, 3 years, I would say everything has been a surprise.
Yeah.
2 years, maybe like 75% surprise. One thing that has been exciting, and I think if you just kind of talk to customers at this event, I would argue that the vast majority of the use cases so far that customers have come to us with are effectively some form of like net new work that the company is now deploying AI labor at. People are not just coming to us with today's exact workflow and saying, now I want an agent to go do that. Yeah. They're actually finding the bottlenecks in their company that they never could actually go and bring automation to, or even human labor in many cases too. It was just an inherently slow part of their work, and they could never go and automate that. And so we're seeing so many use cases where customers are saying, hey, actually I could deploy an agent at this part of a workflow, and it actually doesn't replace any people, but it lets the company move faster and maybe be able to better serve customers, maybe be able to get more throughput of a product that they're getting to market. And so when you kind of talk to people about like how are they actually deploying agents, it's a lot of these use cases, which is I'm going to make my current people just literally 2x more productive. I'm going to make my outbound sales reps 2x more productive. I'm going to make that insurance claim agent, the human agent, 40% more productive. And it's really about these new use cases that they're finding in their enterprise.
So I interviewed you a few months ago, and I asked you something very similar, and I want to get your update on this.
No changes.
No. So there was the white collar bloodbath comment and this and that, and I've quoted you multiple times saying, because it was such like an easy way to explain it. If you have a team that is all of a sudden hyper productive, why would I not double down on them?
Yeah.
I think the answer is obvious, but give me your updated thoughts. Give me why you still think that way.
I mean, this industry moves very fast, but fortunately no change in the past 2 months on that answer. Mostly, I think AI is largely going to be deployed at areas where companies have previously been constrained by resource, constrained by their ability to execute, which will, in many cases, actually lead to faster growth of companies, which ironically could even mean more hiring, because now you need people to go and handle the next set of bottlenecks that you're bottlenecked on. So if you think about like a hyper growth software startup, maybe they can code more efficiently, but all of a sudden they have more customers they have to go serve, which means more people in sales or consulting or customer success. So I actually think this will lead to growth in just different areas than the places that we maybe automated initially. I also think that realistically, there's just going to be years and years of change management that has to happen. This is an audience of online and in person thousands of enterprises that are obviously inherently, by being here, forward leaning in nature. Yeah. But the thing that we hear from all customers is just, how do I do the change management? How do I actually get my company to accelerate this journey? We have years of that to ripple through the economy and to ripple through companies, and I think that will give companies and people and teams time to adapt to then what are the new ways that we work, and what are the next set of jobs and tasks that we will work on. And so I just don't believe there's going to be some kind of overnight, bloodbath in this kind of terminology.
Is that a function of education, though?
No. Think about how I know you do this. We'll watch these like brand new startups and how they operate, and it's like so obvious that if you started a company today, you are and you were like AI, kind of pilled like we obviously are, you would run your company completely differently as a result of AI agents than you would have 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And the biggest phenomenon is that in many cases you're running your company to make the agents more effective, as opposed to deploying agents into a set of existing workflows that you just expect the agent to kind of adapt to. This is one of the biggest I think realizations I personally had, which is that I think it's more likely that we change how we work to make agents effective than agents actually learning how we work and just automating that. And so the things that you'll think about are like people will have Claude Code with sub-agents divided by every single task that they want to hand to an agent. Maybe it's every microservice in their code base. Maybe it's a front-end versus back-end architect. So they're fundamentally designing their workflows in a way that goes well beyond what our human-based processes would have looked like. The reason for that kind of diatribe is most enterprises are going to take years to redesign their processes to be agent first. Now, this is going to be an incredible moment for startups because you could outrun lots of incumbents merely by just designing your company in an agent first way. But it's going to take years and years for the economy to kind of have that same epiphany, which is, wait a second, I should probably not be waiting for AI to learn how I work. We should probably be changing how we work to get the gains of AI.
Yeah.
And the companies that do that sooner will get the faster productivity gains than the ones that are waiting for some kind of panacea future moment. And those will be the companies that then get the compounding returns of AI.
Yeah, I had asked you about that as well, about startups versus the big players on the market, and you were very bullish, like, hey, startups can still move quick. So it seems like startups still have that advantage of, we're going to adopt the new thing much more quickly, we're going to roll it out much more quickly, and we're going to move faster than you ever could. Obviously, the giants can now move more quickly, but you still believe that startups have that distinct advantage of speed?
Yeah, so you always have this inherent tension. One has speed, the other has distribution. And that's been the war, since any form of modern capitalism, in the industrial age. Like, I have an existing customer base I can bring products to, but you can move faster and run laps around me. And so different markets favor different dynamics, right? The network effects that get created in the software world often means that if you can move faster, you can build those network effects and make the distribution less relevant. If I have physical goods I have to get to my customers, then distribution all of a sudden obviously matters more. This is why it's very hard to kind of disrupt an Apple, but it might be a little bit easier to put some tension on Google because you just have a web browser that you have to go to and you can change the URL and start to use a different product.
Yeah.
And so I think those trends remain exactly the same in an AI world as they have in prior eras of technology. And I like the odds of startups in a lot of spaces because I do think that AI has led to a reinvention of work. And I do think that startups have an ability to just pounce on that and reinvent their workflows for a world of AI.
Yeah. When I think of the enterprise, I think of a couple of things being critical. Reliability, trust, safety, these kinds of things. With how fast everything's moving, new models being released every single week, personalities of those models changing, potentially the output of those models changing. How do you address that? How do you stay ahead of it? How do you test for it to make sure that the results are consistent across the enterprise?
Yeah, well, this is sort of one of the areas we have to spend the most amount of time on, which is how do we create scaffolding to leverage AI with unstructured data that is let's just say future-proof enough that basically we can swap in different components as the market evolves, but we are not so religious about that we wouldn't be willing to tear off a part of it if a new model had a breakthrough that made something that we built obsolete. And this is just like it's actually like 80% an emotional thing. Because you have to basically be totally fine with like the sunk cost fallacy of like wait a second, like we just did all of that work, like we must find value in it, and there are some moments where you just have to be like, no, scrap it. The latest models just solve that problem. and there's like no reason to go spend more and more time building some scaffolding of some capability. So one of the most fun things about AI is how often you're revisiting those decisions. And I've never seen, we've done Box now for 20 years. I've never seen a moment in technology where you are so quickly reevaluating core architectural decisions and deciding, okay, is that thing going to sustain? And is that kind of timeless versus are we going to have to swap that part out? One of the benefits of a lot of what we've built over now 2 decades is we have a bunch of components that are they transcend AI and AI agents, but they become incredibly important for AI agents. Things like security, access controls, data permissions. Those things are as necessary, if not more necessary, in a world of AI. And those don't necessarily get disrupted or have any kind of conflict with the models. But there are lots of pieces of technology that we're kind of mitigating some of the limitations of the model that all of a sudden a new model upgrade will make obsolete, and then we just have to keep kind of going to the next higher order task that becomes apparent.
So I know you guys, Box, run your own evals every time a new model comes out. You have a team dedicated to that. We spoke to Srinivas, who said, we asked him the same question. Hey, if you're kind of versioning the model so frequently, how do customers stay ahead and make sure that their workflows don't break?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your models.
Yeah. I'm only laughing because I was just on Monday. I was Tuesday. So just 2 days ago, I was unhappy with one of the outputs we were seeing from a new model update, and from a formatting stylistic standpoint. And I just went up to the engineer that owned this particular agent, and we just went straight to the system prompt, and we were just like tweaking, literally lines in the system prompt, because from one upgrade of the same model family, something had kind of changed in this nuanced way, and then we were having to decide, okay, do we overfit it to now this new use case, and then actually literally say, maybe don't use bullet points for every single thing that you're typing out.
Isn't it wild how you can change a tiny little thing in a system prompt and it completely changes the personality of the model? Why? That's completely crazy to me.
It's the most wild thing of all time that we are literally directing this form of intelligence through just sentences,
17 lines of plain old English.
And then
do this, be this way,
and you're just totally, literally crossing your fingers.
Yeah.
As you're then running the test.
But that's why evals are so important.
That's why evals.
Tell us how you do evals at Box.
Yeah, so we have a series of there's multiple types of evals we do. The biggest one we do is we do a data extraction eval just to see is this model capable of pulling out data from the document? That generally correlates to a lot of our kind of workflow automation type use cases. So we have tens of thousands of data fields that we try and pull out from thousands of documents across a range of industries and use cases.
And that's verifiable.
Verifiable.
That's the
We've got great ground truth data. We have a grader agent that looks through the results. Yeah. And every time there's a new model, we run that model through this test of, can you pull out all of these tens of thousands of fields? And we've seen kind of effectively monotonic increases in quality of models over time, being able to pull out more and more fields. So much so that actually our new problem is we have to raise the bar. So we're always actively finding new data sets that we think represent the more and more complex work that our customers are going to have.
Do you have an internal leaderboard?
We do. We're always debating, do we ever kind of publish it? We're not trying to get too much into the drama of the model wars.
This is a great platform if you want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Here's what I'd say. Across the leading, top 4 state-of-the-art models, I think you're seeing relatively consistent, plus or minus 1 to 3 points on most of the variables we track. So the good news is that we have reached a point where most models are extremely good at the base set of tasks that we've given it.
Yeah.
But again, the new problem is we want to raise the bar because those base tasks are now, increasingly being effectively just expected by customers. And so now customers are coming to us with the next set of problems, and they're saying, hey, can you go do this now with AI? And we're going to need another set of evals. One kind of plug I'll throw out there is Claude just launched, file generation within Claude, and we have no eval at the moment for the quality of data generation. How good is the document formatted? How much did it sort of match the template that you gave it? that'll be a whole new set of evals we have to start to think about, because that will now be a new use case that customers can expect because of what AI can do.
And so when you're looking at these models, if you had the decision-making power on how they improve speed, cost, quality, choose one to focus on first. And usually there's the pyramid, you choose two of them. Which one first? And then if you had to choose two in the long run, which are the most two important?
So, the interesting thing is that I'm not going to cheat, but the interesting thing is that with AI, those three happen to be more interrelated than any other kind of version of that in history.
Yeah.
Because cost and speed are kind of just like toggles that you just get to decide, like where are you on that dimension. I would say quality right now is still number one focus, and there are very few use cases that customers have where if it worked perfectly would be unaffordable by the customer.
Right.
So within some reasonable amount, like maybe they wouldn't do 1,000 times more compute just to get the right answer to some kind of question, but like within reason, we are mostly still just quality constrained, and so the reduction of hallucination, the increase of accuracy of pulling out data, the ability for agents to be longer running without sort of the context window rot issue.
Yeah.
If I put all of those into the quality bucket of improvement, if we could continue to improve on those dimensions, that will lead to the greatest amount of economic impact probably of all. Speed, actually, interestingly, I used to be a speed maxi, and now I'm actually like I'm weirdly like not that concerned about speed anymore because of the background agent phenomenon. Once you can parallelize agents and you're no longer, the back and forth is no longer the main dimension. Speed really matters when the agent can only work as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Then you need the answers instantly. But if I can deploy 20 agents to go work in the background, then I don't really care if that task took a minute or 5 seconds if you can parallelize the task. Because then eventually I can just go through some queue and look at all the results. And so the sort of you don't have that serial nature of work anymore where the speed problem kind of exists.
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to what you were talking about earlier. Maybe this is the humans changing for the agents to work. I am a speed maxi. I think, but maybe that's a function of like, hey, I'm sitting there and I want the response immediately, especially with coding. I want to be able to iterate, but then maybe the flip side to that is I need to send off my agent. I need to send off a dozen of those agents, let them work for a few dozen minutes.
Yes. Well, so if you said 2 years ago, okay, if we were only looking at AI and what AI could do 2 years ago, and I'm a knowledge worker and I'm like, I want to go and generate a PowerPoint, deck. What would happen is and the reason why you had to be a speed maxi was you get some answer back and you're like, okay, I want to change that. That's not really good. I want to get another update. And then I have to incorporate this into the PowerPoint deck and then make another modification. And so you have this sort of, you're going back and forth for 20, 30 interactions.
Yeah.
In which case, obviously, each of those interactions, you're bound by the speed of that AI response. Well, again, just like if you look at what happened 2 days ago with Claude, if I go and say, just generate this PowerPoint deck for this customer, I can sort of go off and have the agent go do that work. I can go do something else. 5 minutes later, it has the PowerPoint deck. I do one review of it, change a couple things in the editor, and I'm done. And so speed really isn't then, there's like no workflow on the planet where like the difference between getting a PowerPoint deck built in 5 seconds versus 5 minutes is like the determining factor. That workflow doesn't exist. So and so as long as I don't have to oversee every step of that agent,
that's the key.
It doesn't matter.
It's the point in time in where the human needs to review, where the human's in the loop. The more of those points you have, the faster the model actually needs to be. So it's interesting that you said quality number one. We were talking to Srinivas earlier. He said what they're focusing on, of course, quality first.
There it is.
Then they want to make it faster.
Okay,
Then they want to make it cheaper.
Yeah. But like you don't really. I think I'd say the zeitgeist has sort of changed on even the speed conversation. When you think of even like coding agents, like we don't really talk about like how fast the agent did some coding project because we're now used to this idea that I can like go to Claude Code send off a task for one agent, then go to a sub agent and have another agent, and they're going to all kind of coordinate together. And I'm going to go then get a coffee, and the work is just still happening in the background. And so again, we're no longer constrained by kind of time to first token in the same way that we probably were 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Here's a slight counter argument to that point, which is if your inference speed is faster, you can do more inference, you can do more reasoning in a shorter period of time. Thus, it should be higher quality, and so quality and speed are actually interrelated.
Well, so that's what I was going to say. Well, that's why I think these three things are kind of like they all have this kind of similar relationship, because you can, basically more speed will give you more quality because you'll just run more inference. And
then price. Who cares? If it's doing what you need and the ROI is there.
We'll see. But I think it is this interesting phenomenon on. Okay, can I go and deploy 20 agents at a problem and they'll find consensus? The Grok 4 heavy kind of dynamic that was pretty interesting. I think no matter what, like I guess I would be fine if like Jensen is responsible for speed and cost, and the model, the model labs are responsible for quality. Like we can have multiple parallel parts of the stack improve.
Let's talk for a second. I want to continue down the line of like pass at K. You have multiple agents going out. You're going to choose the best one. Is that something Box does right now? Is that something that you expose to your customers to control, or you're like, that's too much for them to think about? We're going to handle that in the background.
So we don't have that live yet. Our data extraction agent will incorporate a version of that. Okay. And what it's probably going to look a little bit more like you will give us a confidence interval that you want to have met. And then below that confidence interval, we'll keep trying, and so that might be through multiple models. That might we chunk the data in a different way, but we want to get to a point where you tell us hey, I need 97% accurate or 99% or 99.999% accurate data extraction, and I don't mind. Here's my compute budget, and then you sort of handle the rest. And we want to build systems that kind of do that.
Okay. Aaron, thank you so much for your time, man.
Thanks for coming out.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks.
Aaron, actually, one more question if you have the time.
If you allow it.
Yeah, please.
So, you guys talked last time, and I think this is just very relevant for a lot of members of our audience and a lot of business leaders in general. You guys spoke about the tactics and call them rituals that Box uses for AI competency, just learning about AI, how to implement, how to use it in your day-to-day. Like, has anything changed there? Any developments that you can share with the audience of, best practices?
Yeah. So we're very committed as a company of going AI first in everything that we do. Certainly how we build our product, but then internally how we run the company. And I think. I think probably this is, I'm somewhat biased by just the recency of the conversations generally, but I do think there's something really interesting about the idea of context engineering, but applied to all forms of knowledge work, which is sort of like you're always effectively trying to figure out how to give agents the right context to let them effectively go and get deployed against whatever workflow they're being involved in. So much of what we do at Box is we've gone AI first is just how do you give the agent the right context to then automate that workflow. Yep. So we spend a lot of time now increasing the documentation of work that we're doing. So if we can better describe how we want that work to get done, then an agent is way better off, or the agent will have way better odds of being able to actually go and execute on that work. We spend a lot of time making sure that the agents have access to the right corporate knowledge and data to do that work. That's clearly, we as a platform obviously live and breathe and die by access to information. And so we spend a lot of time on, does the agent have access to the right data? Does it have the right instructions? Does it have the right objectives? Does it show up in the workflow at the right point? And then are we going after the right kinds of problems that we can go automate in the company? And those are some of the things that we're focused on.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right.
Guys.
Thanks for hanging out.
All right. Take care.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
that's our show.
That brings us to
this has been awesome.
Here. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, everybody, on the live stream. Really appreciate it. Thanks to our guests, Srinivas from OpenAI, Matan Grinberg, Factory AI, and Aaron Levy from Box. Nick, thank you. Thanks for co-hosting with me. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime.
Another big thanks to Box for inviting us here, for sponsoring this live stream. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. You can follow me at Matthew Berman. You can follow Forward Future at _future_.
That's it.
Great one.
Yep.
And check out our newsletter, forwardfuture.ai. We have another live show tomorrow, an incredible lineup.